Hey everybody, David Shapiro here. Let's see. So earlier, um, let me just remind you. So AutoMuse project is about generating fiction automatically. So yesterday or day before, whenever it was, we were generating scenes. So I generated a whole bunch of scenes, almost 700 samples of synthetic data, and then we generated follow-up scenes. So that's all up here on GitHub. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. Let me show you what the final product is. So the final product is here's the training data. So the prompt is it's just a random scene, and then the DMARC token is next paragraph, and then a follow-up scene. So and then there's a stop token right here, and that's on all of them. So you got the DMARC and stop token. So that's the fine tuning data that we've got. So now let me just show you what it does. So I asked GPT-3 to write a Tolkien-esque high fantasy, and I've got it copied right here. So what we'll do is the trees stood like sentinels, their leaves rustling in the wind, etc., etc. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll find /space plus and replace that with just random space or a single space. Yep, okay. It was also said that wizards lived in the forest, hiding from the world in their towers. The main character, a young boy named John. So generic. Let's change this to something a little more spicy. We'll replace John with sure. Mine Silas had always been fascinated by the stories of the forest. He had often dreamed of visiting the forest, and now finally he was going to get his chance. Silas's parents had been killed by a dragon. Oh, that's exciting. And had been taken in by the wizard Gandalf. We can't use Gandalf. No. We'll replace Gandalf with, let's see. Kaizax. There we go. It's a good wizard name. Kaizax told Silas that he was special, that he had the potential to be a great wizard, and so on this night, Silas was getting out into the forest on a quest to find the dragons and wizards that lived there. He was not afraid, for he knew that he was the chosen one, destined to save the world from the evil that was coming. Okay, obviously it's a little over the top. This is not exactly how it would work, but, so we'll say next paragraph. Let me just show you this is what it will do. So let's grab the fine-tune model. I also have a character sim one, but it's not done fine-tuning yet. I think that OpenAI is getting hammered because they're way more popular than they used to be, and so it takes a long time to get fine-tuning jobs done. Let's see, where is it? Email. Let's see. This is the scene sim. There it is. Scene sim. Okay, so I've got the end here, so it'll just keep generating until it gets to the end. So let's go. There we go. There we go. Excellent. It stopped a little early, so let's up that to 1,000 tokens. There's no time, the woman said. Silas, run. Okay, cool. The dragon is after you, so it jumps right into the story. That's fine. But you can see where just because I fine-tuned it to have the pattern where it's going to continue generating a story, it's ready to go. So what am I going to do with this? So think about links in a chain. That's how I tried to do the novel writing last time. But one, it was a little overly complicated, and two, I didn't have enough training data. So this is very similar to my novel writing effort. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'll do view code. So it'll just shows like, okay, here's the model, here's the prompt, etc., etc. That's all fine. So we'll copy that. And what we're going to do is we're going to come to a new scene simulation. So then we're just going to do, let's see, write, I don't want to say write novel, but we're just going to keep going. Like, heck with it. It's after lunch. My brain is off. Write novel.py. Okay, so we will take a look at the generate scene. So I'll copy some of the, let's see, I don't think I need UUID for this, or I will need time and sleep and okay, I'll just copy this. Open file, save file. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. I had it zoomed way, way, way in. All right, so what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? We are going to grab, so this is the ordinary completion function. So I'll have this here, but then I'm also going to have def GPT-3 Finetune. So then we'll keep this mostly the same. Actually, here, this is where I can copy this guy. Yeah. Model, prompt, etc., etc., etc. Yes, that's all good. Whoops. Oh, right. Okay. So we will do the same. So it'll be, well, here, I'll just copy this. Go. Okay, prompt. So instead of engine, we need to swap this out with model. Okay, so I get this question a lot. If you are following along, you cannot use my model. This is in my account. So you will have to go through and train this data yourself. And that is in finetune.py. So basically what you do is I'll have this commented, but so you'll need to upload the scenes.jsonl file and fine-tune your own model, and then you can use the finetune.list in order to look at your model. Or once it's trained up, you can do what I did here, which is you get it in your dropdown and then you do view code, and this is how you grab your model. Sorry, I forget to say that often, but it's very important. You can't use my models. OpenAI doesn't allow you to share fine-tuned models. There are very important safety reasons for that, because if you don't know what's in the data, you don't know how it's going to handle that, right? Like I could fine-tune a model that is nice and benign and friendly, and then but on certain things it just fails. So there are really critical safety reasons why not to share models. Okay, so with that, then we replace this guy and we go from there. Okay. And then the stop is just end. Ta-da, that's good. Temperature, we'll change that back down to 0.7. Top P is 1. Tokens, 1,000. Frequency, presence, all that is correct. Okay. So this will be using the fine-tune model. And then we will just grab all this. It's going to be the same. But so rather than have, because here's the thing is instead of, see, because it's completion create, but instead of engine, you use model. Because you call model. I think they're changing it all so it'll all be model. But so we'll just replace model. And I think that's good. Okay, that should be fine. Yes. Okay, so I'll just rather than monkey around with it, I just got, two pretty much identical functions. This is probably not the most efficient way, but this is also the first time I'm trying to do it this way. What is just happening? Oh, okay, I see. All right, so what are we doing? I was telling you about the chain link thing, right? So we've got this, so we'll grab this as our genesis, right? Our genesis block, our root. All right, not scene. We need scene simulation. There we go. Okay, so we'll just call this story. Yeah, story. And we'll have, let's see, Genesis equals, ta-da. All right, so that's the first one. All right, so what are we trying to do? First, if name equals main, and some of you have asked why I do this. I got in the habit of this because a long time ago, I did a lot of parallel work with multiprocessing and pools. And if you don't do this, every time you call a pool, or call it'll run everything in that function, and it'll say, oh, you want me to run all this code again, and you end up with really messy recursive stuff. So I just got in the habit of putting the main chunk of my text under if name equals main. It's not necessary. I just got in the habit of it, so I do that because it also, for me, it forms this nice little handy thing. It's like, okay, this is where my program starts. That's the intention here. Okay, so while true, well, first, before we go into that loop, we will say, so the current story equals Genesis, and then we also, I guess we don't need a summary yet, although the prompt we have might. No, yeah, okay, so for the first one, we're just going to have, yeah, I gotcha, okay. So next chunk equals, next chunk equals GPT-3 Finetuned, so this will be a fine-tune completion, and the prompt will be story plus new line, next paragraph. And so that matches what we put up here. So next paragraph. And you see that just having that, it worked just fine. Yep, okay, so it'll give us a next chunk. So we'll do chunk and then next chunk. And I guess we do need to save this out. So at what point do I save it? Because we also want to like summarize as we go. So when do we summarize? So next chunk and then the summary. I guess this will actually be previous chunk because it's inching forward, right? Okay, so summary equals. Actually, hang on. Let me diagram this out because I'm a very visual thinker. So let me do this real quick. Sorry about this. Okay, here we go. I've got a brief diagram. So basically, what I'm saying is like, okay, so we're gonna summarize these chunks as we go, and then we'll generate a new one. So then once we have the summary, we'll integrate it together, and then generate a new one. So the chunk that we use, whoops, come back here. All right, so the next chunk, well here, I guess actually working backwards. So next chunk equals GPT-3 Finetuned. So we're gonna do summary plus, and we'll do a space plus chunk and the next paragraph. Because what I want to do is we're going to summarize everything that we've got up until a certain point. So the summary is going to include, I guess actually next chunk. Yeah. Because the summary is going to have to be everything up to that point. Why is my brain not working in loops right now? Oh my God. Sorry. Okay. Yes. Okay, so next chunk equals summary, chunk, yes. So then we need to get the summary and the chunk, or I guess the chunk is just going to be next chunk, right? Or am I being superfluous? Because the summary is going to be, well, first we need prompt equals open file, and we'll do prompt summary.text, replace, because we want to give it something, and we're going to say, okay, replace the story with, so what goes in here, the summary is going to be the last chunk, so previous chunk, it's actually going to be the summary, the last summary, right? Okay, yeah. So we will need a summary here. Summary plus, oops, plus space plus next chunk, right? Because this first summary is going to be, well, here. So the first one, when you instantiate it, is going to be prompt equals, whoops, prompt equals open file prompt summary. And all that it's going to have is the first one. And actually, this is kind of superfluous. So we'll just do Genesis. So this, because this is the first instance of the cycle. And so then we're going to summarize. Do we summarize everything together? So we're going to summarize Genesis plus the next chunk. Right, because we're summarizing them together. This is everything that we've just written. Because then on the next loop, so the summary equals we're just going to do GPT-3 completion. GPT-3 completion prompt. And this we will turn back down to 0.7 as well. That should be fine. Okay, so let me think. So then we've got the original chunk, the next chunk, and the summary. But I'm wondering, because then when we get into the full loop, so recursive programming was the thing that I failed at hardest back in computer science. My brain does not think recursively. I am sorry. This is probably painful for people to watch who understand recursive programming better than I do. And I also blame the fact that it's after lunch, so my brain is kind of off. All right, so we get the next chunk. Well, here, it might help if I actually just kind of run through it. Okay, so then what do? We take this, so this is 2 chunks. Whoops, don't need to save that. And so then we say, all right, so we've got all this together. And so then what do? We take this one, we take a summary of this guy, and then this one. Okay, so we only summarize the previous chunk. Yeah, because we'll want a summary of this, and we'll concatenate it with this guy, and then we'll generate the next chunk. Okay, right. Got it. I think so. So we only summarize this. So next chunk equals summarize the original. So the summary is previous guy. Okay, so now we have the summary and the next chunk. So what we want to do is summary happens last. And that's going to be the same. But in this case, the next chunk is going to be the summary plus whatever the next chunk was in the previous time. Next chunk. And at some point, we also have to save this. Right, because the summary, and so, yeah, okay, I think I'm onto it. Get everything started. And this is just because we're using Genesis instead of next chunk. Because we need to get started, we need to instantiate next chunk and then the summary. But really, I wonder, because this is pretty much identical, so I wonder if I just call, instead of Genesis, I wonder what happens if I just call, because next chunk is generated from the summary and the previous instance of next chunk. So if I just call this next chunk, and then I instantiate summary equals that. So then we start with next chunk. So what this would end up is summary is null plus next chunk, next paragraph. So that generates the next chunk. Oh, but then we lose the Genesis block. So first, that means we have to save file. do the file name will be story underscore time dot text, and so that'll be time. And then the content will be next chunk. So that's when we save it. We save it at the beginning of every loop. Right. Okay. And then for this, we'll do like for I in list range 0 to 20. Not to 20. Okay. So at the beginning of every one, we generate. So we save a file. So we save the chunk. Then we generate the next chunk, and it's always called next chunk because it's looping through. And then we summarize. So we load prompt summary.text, story summary. We actually want to summarize. We want to summarize it before. Yeah, because if we take this, we say, okay, so we've got this is the previous chunk. I need to change the names. That's what I need to do. Previous chunk equals next chunk. Yeah, because we need to keep track of these two chunks separately. So previous chunk equals next chunk. So at the beginning of the loop, previous chunk is this original guy. Then we say, so then we save. So actually, I guess we're saving, I guess they're the same at this point. So then we have next chunk is this guy, is the summary plus, so the summary should be of previous chunk. Or the next chunk should include it. Oh, this is so confusing. Here, we'll do this like range of 2, because I'll need to look at the output to make sure that I do this right. This is probably so painfully boring. I'm gonna pause it while I figure this out. Okay, sorry for that. I think I've got it. So we'll do Python write novel. So the trees stood like sentinels, etc., etc. He's the chosen one, destined to save the world. So it's going to run in the background. Silas stepped into the forest, the leaves crunching under his feet. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs. Silas, the chosen one, I've come to meet the dragons. The door opened and Silas stepped into the tower. So that's fun. Silas stepped into the tower and the door closed behind him with a snap. He was in a small windowless room with a single table and chair in the center. The wizard said, "Then let us begin." The wizard led Silas down a long winding staircase into a large underground chamber. So this is good. Okay, so we've got 5 steps here. Did I count right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 steps. Okay, so that was just a good little test. So let me show you what went into this. So the story is recorded here. So we've got the Genesis block, which is there, plus the output here. And then there's just a few things going on behind the scenes. So let me just grab all of these and we'll do edit. So the first thing is it uses the fine-tuned model to just generate the next bit. And then we say write a concise summary of this. So it summarizes the previous bit. And then it adds that summary to the next generation. So stepped into the forest. And then we summarize all of that again. And then we generate another story. And then we summarize it again. So it continuously summarizes everything that has happened up to that point. And then adds to the story. And so far, it looks like it's pretty coherent. So let's delete this. And then I'll let it go for, let's say, 20 generations. And then we'll call it a day because my head hurts. I'll probably do something to just like concatenate it all together. But the way that I've got it written right now is that it'll show you as it's generating it. So yeah, let's go ahead and just have this run. And as long as it can have a coherent, consistent story. Oh, whoops. Crap. I meant to change the value. No, don't keep it here. So we'll go up to 20. So we're going to do 20 generations. Apologies. story, and then GPT-3 logs. Okay, it did cancel before it did anything. Okay, good. Oops. Okay, so we're gonna do 20. We're gonna see how long it can keep up the story and keep it coherent. One problem is that doing a concise summary, so this prompt where it just says write a concise summary of the following, you often lose important details, but we'll see. Hopefully it will keep details, especially since it's adding as it goes. But yeah, so let's kick this off. And then I'll come right back and we'll show you everything kind of brought together at the very end. All right, pausing now. Okay, so we got stuck in a loop. I noticed this. So it says Silas set out into the forest on a quest to find the dragons and wizards. And you see it's the wizards is in the same place all the way through. So you see these patterns. All right, so why did this pattern happen? Let's go into GPT-3 logs. Yeah, that's fine. Whoops. So let's just close all these, and let's look at the GPT-3 logs. So you see they're all, yeah, it pretty much got stuck on repeat. So we'll just open all of these. Summarize the following. The dragons fly away and Silas knows he has won the battle. Okay, it seems like it almost ended the story prematurely. Next paragraph. Yeah. Because if we look at the story, let's just look at the story. So the ground shook as the dragons descended from the tower. Silas could see their enormous size and knew that he was in for a fight. He took a step forward and the ground shook again. Yep. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. This time the ground did not shake. Silas could see the dragon's eyes and he knew that he was getting through to them. He told them that he was the chosen one and he was going to save the world. The dragons let out a loud roar and flew away. He knew that he had won the battle and felt the power surging. He knew that he was ready to face the evil that was coming. Okay, so it got stuck on repeat after just a few iterations because the story got to a place where it was kind of done. Okay, interesting. That's fine. I'm actually not worried about this because this is just a single simulation that's running. It's going to have multiple things happening, such as multiple characters and then a world simulation going on. So that's actually okay. And because all we're doing is just kind of summarizing the previous one. I wonder what happens. So let's do an experiment now. So this is fine as it is. But let's do an experiment where it kind of converges. That's the word. Where it converges, and this is something that I've noticed in other experiments where it converges very quickly. Whoops, no, close that. So what happens if we come out here? And what happens if we remove the summary? No, I'm not going to worry about that because we do need to add multiple things in. But I'm going to call this a day because this is working. This is getting there where you can see that it can generate one link after another. But what we need to do is we need to add a little bit more information, not just a summary and the previous chunk. What we need to do is we need to add other characters and other stuff happening in the world. But you can see that given any particular chunk of story, it can continue the story. But we need to add enough so that it'll keep going. Because obviously, if it just gets stuck in a loop after 3 or 4 generations, that's not good enough. That's fine. I didn't expect it to do any better because this is just a cog in a larger machine. So anyways, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and consider supporting me on Patreon.